We have the gift of gab coming up with none other than the legendary West Coast honoree himself, Mr. Havoc, the mouthpiece.
Hey.
Gift of gab.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're about to tune in and we're about to gab it up. First of all, let me give him a small introduction. Well, he really don't need no introduction. He's one of two men. And all you people, all our listeners out there, here's a moment for y'all to really, take some notes. We have Russ Regan. He is a iconic, when I say iconic, music executive. He's one of two men who has been responsible for a billion, not a million, a billion record sales. Wow. And the other man is Clyde Davis, just in case y'all want to go Google it. Anyway, Russ Regan also is, he named the Beach Boys. He was the man who gave the Beach Boys their name. And he also is having a movie made, a documentary currently being done about him. So let's bring him on and let's gab it up with the legendary, iconic Russ Regan.
Hello, Havoc. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, how you doing, Russ? Thank you, first of all, for calling up to the Cali's Best Radio Show on KCAA. We really appreciate you taking your time out, Russ, because, the music business definitely need, to have some knowledge shared amongst a lot of these artists out here, not only in Cali but around the world. Need to, hear what it's like to, to experience the success of music.
Well, it's my pleasure to be with you tonight, and just ask me whatever you want to ask me. I'm ready to go, buddy.
Well, first of all, can you give our listeners a little history of how did you start in the music business?
Well, I was very lucky. I started as a singer-songwriter, believe it or not, myself at Capitol Records. And I had a couple of records out on Capitol, and they didn't do that great. And I met a guy named Sonny Bono. And Sonny said to me, Russ, he said, maybe you should be behind the scenes instead of in front of the scene. And he taught me to be a record promotion man.
Wow.
So I started promoting records at radio, and luckily got a job with Motown Records, believe it or not. And Motown was the greatest experience a young man could ever have, because Berry Gordy is probably one of the greatest record men who ever lived. He's a song man, which he taught me the only way to get through this business are the songs. He said songs make the hits, not the artist, believe it or not.
Wow.
The artist is the delivery system of the song, okay? And the song is the most important thing. And
yes.
The first record I promoted was Please Mr. Postman, and there was a line in there called "Be liver, be letter, be sooner, be better." And all the kids used to know that line, So I told Mr. Gordy, I said, that every time I go to these hops, all the kids know that one. He said, son, that's the hook in the song.
Wow.
All these songs, Motown records, if you listen to them, all have hooks in them. They're very easy to remember.
Russ,
they're still going strong.
That is so great.
I was very lucky to learn from the best man and a young guy named Sonny Bono, who also was a big help to me.
Because we're actually having Sherry Gordy on the show on the 17th of March, so that's going to be awesome to talk about her father and also her being the princess of Motown.
Well, I love the Gordy family. I know a lot of them, and they're just great people. And I was lucky enough to be a part of the team. And later on, Mr. Gordy brought me back to be president of the creative division, which was an honor.
Okay, so tell us about how did you wind up naming some group, I believe, called the Beach Boys?
Well, that's a great story. I was a promotion man at Buckeye Record Distributors, and we distributed a label named Candix Records. And the man running Candix Records, A&R at that time, was a gentleman by the name of Joe Saraceno. And he called me on the phone one day, and he played me a record on the phone in those days. And he says, what do you think? I said, well, I think it sounds like a Jan and Dean kind of ripoff record. He said, well, it's not Jan and Dean ripoff. It's a new group. I said, yeah, what's the name of the group? He says, called the Pendletons. He said, but I'm going to change their name to the Surfers because the name of the song they're putting out is called Surfing. And I said, Joe, you can't name them the Surfers. There's another group called the Surfers. So he says, well, Russ, give me a name. So I said, well, call them the Woodies. He said, I don't like that. I said, call them the Hang Tens. He said, I don't like that. I said, call them the Beach Boys. He said, that's it. It took about 20 seconds.
Wow.
And that's how I named the Beach Boys.
And also, didn't you have something to do with another man by the name of Barry White?
Absolutely. Well, get this one, Havoc. That's a great story. I signed Love Unlimited, Walking in the Rain with the One I Love. It was produced and written by Barry White, right, when I was at UNI Records. So, and it was a big hit. I went on the road and personally promoted that myself. And then when I left UNI Records and went to 20th Century, Barry White calls me up and he says, Rusty, he used to call me Rusty. He said, why'd you leave? I said, well, I got a better job. I got a chance. He said, well, I was going to be next. And I said, what do you mean next? He said, well, I can sing. I didn't know Barry White could sing.
Oh.
It's a true story.
Wow.
And so I said, well, why didn't you tell me? He said, well, look, Barry, I'm the president of 20th Century Records. I can sign whoever I want. So come on over. So he came over, and he said, look, I got 5 songs I want to record on my first album. One of them I'm going to do Standing in the Shadows of Love. He's going to do about 12 minutes of it. So anyway, to make a long story short, first record he made, produced, and sang on was I'm Gonna Love You.
Wow.
He brought that song to me, and I said, thank you, God. I said, I can't believe this is happening. Wow. I flipped out over it, okay? I said, wow. Great. And Barry White walks out of my office, calls his lawyer, and his lawyer calls me and says, he wants to come over and say, renegotiate my contract. I said, what do you mean renegotiate your contract? I said, Barry White's contract. I haven't even put the record out yet. He said, well, Barry says you think it's a smash. I said, well, yeah, but the public, it's got to go out to the public, and they got to tell me it's a smash by buying it. He said, well, we want to renegotiate. I said, you know something? I was a little cocky at that time. I said, I don't want to renegotiate. Get me my $27,000 back and take this and shop it. Get me my money back. They shopped it for 6 companies. It took about 5 weeks to go to. They all thought Barry White was trying to be Isaac Hayes. So Barry White comes to see me and says, Rusty, how do we put this together? I said, by going to the original agreement that we came to, the day you go platinum, have your lawyer draw out the papers now and put it on my desk. And the day you go platinum, I'll sign the new contract. And that's what happened. But I almost didn't have Barry White.
Russ, you didn't have so much talent. But look, Russ, we're going to come right back with you. And, we're going to talk about your upcoming documentary about the historic history of, of your life and your music career. So
I wanted to, hello, Mr. Regan, this is Lady Impress.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hi, I wanted to ask you, could you tell all our upcoming and unsigned artists, give them, what advice would you give them as far as putting their music out there, putting their product out there, and having lots and lots of sales like you had responsible for a billion? How can these artists get some sales?
Well, first of all, there's no more room for goodness, okay? It's very crowded out there because of the Internet. The Internet has caused a crowd of talent and untalented, and I hate to be cruel, but untalented people out there too, okay? And so it's very crowded. Now, the only way to make it in the music business today is to be great. Greatness is the only way you're going to do it. And the greatness starts with the songs again. You got to be either you write the song yourself, or you got to get friends who are people who do write great songs, and start with the song. And then you have to deliver it with the proper arrangement the proper vocals and have it produced properly. Put it out there. Believe it or not, you could put it out there yourself. And put it out there with maybe a small visual, a video of some kind. Put it out there and promote it. Do the social networking and stuff. And then the majors, now this is how the majors do their A&R today. They have a bunch of interns looking at screens and on the internet, and if you get enough views, all of a sudden they take an interest in you. And that's how you start.
Absolutely.
And then when you put it out there, now let's figure this out. Let me say, this is where I learned from Barry Gordy again. He said, Russ, if people like a song, they'll listen to it, but they won't buy it. Okay? We're going to put out music that people love.
Right.
And that's how Motown Records made it, because you have to put out music. That's what I'm getting to.
Preach, Godfather. Preach, Godfather.
Before they'll buy it.
Right.
Hello?
Preach,
Yeah.
Godfather. Preach it.
Good advice. Good advice. You got to make
Well,
hits.
that's the good advice. Put out music that people will love, and they'll buy it. If they like it, they'll listen to it. That's it in a nutshell.
Awesome advice. You unsigned artists and all our listeners, a lot of our listeners come from that type of niche of hip hop, R&B, and urban pop. So that was a good piece of advice Mr. Regan just gave to you.
Definitely.
Very.
Quickly, because we're short on time, Mr. Regan, tell us a little bit about your documentary.
Well, I actually didn't want to do this, but my son and my wife are producing it with an old friend of mine, Paul Tarnapo, and luckily, my life has been touched by a great artist, and I've touched a lot of great artists. So we're going to have in the documentary, believe it or not, we're going to have Elton John and Neil Diamond, and Olivia Newton-John has already done her part.
Wow.
Alan Parsons Project, and Nigel Olsson, and Havoc and Prodigy, of course.
Hey, can I just tell him something real quick, Russ? The theme of the movie is called, and it comes from Prodigy. It says, "It would be no us without Russ."
Oh, that's awesome. That's memorable.
Yeah,
That's nice.
I love that, by the way. But it's going to have a lot of stars in it, and a lot of basically other record executives who I work with who are willing to come to do their thing. And there's even going to be a part of there from a gentleman by the name of Gary Stromberg, who brought me, now get this one, a guy named Charles Manson. Charles Manson, he brought me Charles Manson, and I actually made a demo with Charles Manson.
Oh,
so things like that happened. I saw him the other day. I said, you almost got me killed.
Wow.
That's.
But anyway, the documentary is going to be, I'm really thrilled with it because it's going to be very entertaining. And that's what it's all about. I think it's going to entertain a lot of people. It's going to be, actually, there's going to be a little educational, too, because people see artists that in the heyday of, the beginning of the record business, basically, and see where they came from and how they did it, and what I did for them.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Barry White estate's going to give me footage on Barry talking about me and stuff like that. Who was I still love Barry White.
Yes, Russ.
One of the greatest artists of all time.
We
Hey,
cannot wait to see this documentary. We'll definitely be checking
Russ,
that
we
out when it comes out.
Really want to thank you for taking your time, man, for calling to Cali's Best Radio. Godfather, I appreciate it. I just want to, thank you, man. Really appreciate this. And our listeners.
Well, thank you for being my friend all these years, and you're the greatest. And I love you all, okay?
Thank
All right.
you, Mr. Regan.
Thank you, Russ.
Have a good night, everybody.
You
All
too.
right.